let's get started with ounce equivalent. Okay, so the objective of this training is to help participants of childcare centers or anybody that's participating in CACFP have a better understanding of how to credit grains. So you did go from serving size to what we call ounce equivalent. And just because it's in ounce, we call it ounce equivalent, it does not mean you have to put your stuff in ounces. It just means it's a terminology change. There is more that you do have to serve, but we used to call it you served one serving to those that were 6 and up, and you served a half of a serving to those that were 5 and under. And now it's called you serve a half of an ounce equivalent to those 5 and under, and then you serve 1 ounce equivalent to those 6 and over. So we're going to talk about the ounce equivalent and show you a little bit about the differences, and make sure that you're using some of these items that we have for you. Now, I forgot, I do need to add one more thing to the handout, so to the packet, and I will make sure that I do that before we send it out. Okay. So just some important reminders that a whole grain rich item, you have to serve at least 1 of those per day. Grain-based desserts do not count towards the grain component in CACFP. Different grains that you can serve or products, they contain different amount of grain. So depending on what you're serving is dependent about how much you have to serve. And if you're doing any breakfast cereals, just a reminder that there are also sugar requirements for that as well. Now, if a grain weighs 1 ounce, which is 28 grams, it does not mean that it automatically provides 1 ounce equivalent of grain. So that's kind of what we're going to show you. Something else is the minimum creditable serving size for grain is 0.25 ounce equivalent. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to you right now, but it will here momentarily when we start getting into the thick of some of this stuff. So when you're crediting grains, CACFP grains chart, you can use that. That's what we highly suggest that you use. And you'll look at the nutrition facts label to determine if you're serving enough. USDA, the grains measuring chart you can use, the food buying guide or the food buying guide tool. And if you have any labels from a manufacturer, such as a CN label or a product formulation statement, you can use that as well to determine if you have enough grain. So we're going to talk about ounce equivalent by weight. So as you can see here, we have the grains chart. So you all should have a copy of this. We sent this out. This will be a handout that we do give out at training. It is going to be, this is the one handout I forgot to add to the ounce equivalent. I'm going to add that to it. But this is what it looks like. If you are not for sure, just a reminder, those items that are listed in red, those are grain-based desserts. Those cannot be served. So it used to say where it says group A, it says 1 ounce equivalent equals 22 grams. It used to say 1 serving. So this is where you'll see the changes. You should not, if you have a chart that still says serving on it, you do need to disregard that because we no longer use that. If you're using that chart, you will not probably be serving enough. Now, most of the time you're not going to notice, but there are certain instances where you do really have to pay attention to what you are serving. So let's see here how to use the grains chart to determine. So let's just say you want to use a breadstick, a hard breadstick. And so you'll come over here to the grains chart. It's in group A, and it says 1 ounce equivalent equals 22 grams or 0.08 ounces. So that's where you'll look at the nutrition facts label to ensure however many that you need to serve equals that amount or more. You can always serve more, you just cannot serve less. So this is an example of a nutrition facts label for bread. And so you see here, it says 1 serving size, 1 slice equals 34 grams. So again, you'll want to look at the nutrition facts label on any item that you are purchasing to make sure that you're serving enough. So this here is a really good example of the new chart, the one from 2021 and the old chart. It does show you the difference in the serving sizes. So like right here in group B is where you'll find your bread. You now are required to serve 1 ounce equivalent. So for bread, that equals 28 grams or 1 ounce. Now on the old chart, 1 serving was 25 grams or 0.9 ounces. So as you can see here, it changed very little, but it did increase. But I will say sliced bread is the one that you do need to be cautious of, because you like that sliced bread that we just saw, 1 slice equals 34 grams. we have seen a lot of breads that one slice equals 26 grams. And if you serve that, you're not going to be in compliance because 26 grams, that's the old one. The new one requires 28 grams or 1 ounce. So make sure that you are using the correct grains chart. There is a formula that you can use, and we do provide that formula here for you. So what you do is in the grams cup in one serving product from the nutrition facts label, you put the grams right here. You divide that by the 1 ounce equivalent from the grains chart, and then that will give you your answer to let you know how much that you need. So in this example here, we have the 1 slice of bread that is 34 grams. So we'll take that 1 slice of gram and we'll stick it here in column number 1, and then we'll divide that by the grains chart, which is in group B, by 28 grams, and that equals 1.21. But earlier we stated that anything 2.25 and over is a creditable amount. So since it's under that 1.25, it's 1.21, you have to lower it to it equals 1 portion. So that bread, this 34 grams equals 1 ounce equivalent. So that 1 slice will be appropriate for serving for a bread if you're serving toast. We also have in the handouts that, again, they are uploaded, but I need to add one more thing to them. I'm going to show it to you right here in the handouts. We do have, let me scroll down to it. We do have the calculating that we just went over. This is the handout. Again, you can find this if you just want to calculate. It is a separate in the meal pattern, but I do have handouts. It's several of them together for ounce equivalent, but this is one of them that shows you how to do this. And I'll be very honest, I don't think you're going to use you're not going to use this as much because I think there's much easier and faster ways of figuring out if the item that you are serving does meet the ounce equivalency. So here's another example about bread. So just to make sure when you are serving bread, right here, it says 2 slices equal 44 grams. So if you were to serve 1 slice of bread, would your center meet requirements? So you do have to make sure, because sometimes they will trick you and do stuff like 2 slices equals 44 grams. So if you divide that by 2, it equals 22 grams. So for your older kids, if you were to serve this bread and serve 1 slice, it would not meet requirements because if you divide that by 2, it would equal 22 grams. Now you need 28 grams for those that are 6 and older. But if it was less than that, then you would only need 14 grams and you would be okay for anybody 5 and under. But you do need to make sure that you are checking your labels to ensure that what you are serving is okay. Now, maybe you're serving a sandwich. So if you did serve a sandwich, you're usually using 2 pieces of bread. This would be okay because you're serving a total of 44 grams and they just need a minimum of 28 grams. And like anything else in child nutrition, as long as you can always serve more, you just cannot serve less. And again, we were talking about the sliced bread. This is just, especially if you're doing a 1 bread item like toast, this is where you just really need to make sure that you're purchasing the correct one. Again, 1 slice is 28 grams. So each child, if they had 1 slice would be fine, or if you cut it in half for those 5 and under. But again, this 1 slice is 26 grams. So if you were to serve 1 slice for those 6 and older and serve a half a slice for those 5 and under, you would be short on bread. So just make sure that you are serving the correct amount. If you do find something like this, because it is very common to find the 26 gram, you may want to cut it in squares, and maybe for the older kids you give them 5 squares, and maybe for the younger kids you serve 3. We get this question quite often, like what bread can you buy? And to be honest with you, you really have to check the nutrition facts label. Sara Lee bread has both 28 gram sliced bread and 26 gram sliced bread. So it's really dependent on what you're buying, because you can have the same brand name that has both. I think sometimes it depends on if it's whole grain or not. I think sometimes it depends on how they slice it, if it's a thicker sliced bread. So you really just have to pay attention to the sliced bread that you are purchasing. Now let's talk about the Team Nutrition grain measuring chart. This is again in the handout. We also have this again in the meal pattern requirements section. You can go there and just pull this one yourself. The grains measuring chart tells you how much of grain item you need to serve to meet CACFP meal patterns. And to use this chart is very easy. What you do is, like for instance, in this example right here, you have 4-year-olds. So it is broken up from 1 to 5-year-olds, 6 through 18, and then adults, because we have an adult daycare program. So if you want to serve oatmeal to 4-year-olds, you would come down here and then go and search for oatmeal. So again, we're in the same column. We go down to oatmeal, and it states that you need a 1/4 cup cooked or 14 grams dry. So this is a very handy sheet. The one thing it's always going to tell you is you need or. It will tell you, for instance, like Melba toast, if you serve that you need 3, if it has to be 3.5 by 1.5 to equal the Melba toast. And it says to serve 2 pieces or 11 grams. Just double check the grams, because even though you serve 2 pieces, maybe that Melba toast that you served is 10 grams. So you may have to have 3. Just double check with the grams. But it's pretty spot on, because like graham crackers, they usually just come in the 5 by 2 and a 4 sheet. They have round savory crackers. They don't give brand names, but they give you the type, because not everything isn't a brand name. But again, just double check the grams to ensure that you served enough. But it does make sure, again, to go by like the crackers woven whole wheat square 1.5 by 1.5. Sometimes they'll make those woven crackers into minis, so it won't be the same. You'll have to do more than 3 crackers for the 11 grams. But again, double check the grams just to ensure that you did serve enough. So the oatmeal example that we used, if you went down, it stated that you use a 1/4 cup or 14 grams for those 4 and under. So this is a great chart. It's a great cheat sheet. We highly suggest you using it, and we do have it in the handouts packet for you. The other thing that we have is ounce equivalent by pieces. And again, this is on the same sheet. And again, you have the 20 cheese crackers, the 1 by 1, and that equals 1 ounce. It does give you a lot of helpful hints. Again, we have all of these things, but we always say double check to make sure that they are ounce. It's just when you look at the nutrition facts label, they may say 24 crackers equal, and it could say 2 ounces. So you would know if you did the 12 that it equal 1 ounce, but just, I would always say double check this on your nutrition facts label. So let's talk about pieces or items. So let's talk about the savory crackers. So again, as you can see here, we have in this group, we have 1 through 5, 6 through 18 adults. And then, and it says like adults that snack, and this are adults that if they're eating with your children, you can't claim those meals, but they can eat and you can absorb the cost. Or we have adults, we have adult daycare centers, and this talks about how much that they need. So in our example, we're going to look at savory crackers. So we go to that chart that I showed you. It is one of the handouts, and we come down here to savory crackers. And again, if you need a 1/2 ounce equivalent for anybody 5 and under, you need 11 grams. And again, if you need a 1 ounce equivalent for savory crackers, it's 22 grams, or it's 44 grams if you are an adult daycare center. So this is where you go and you look at your nutrition facts label. This will be on the box. This will be on the container that your items came into. So if we look at here, we see that 16 pieces equal 32 grams. So if we take that 32 grams and divide it by 16, each cracker equals 2 grams. So how do you know how much to serve? Well, if you need 11 grams and you divide that by 2, that you need 5.5 crackers. So you'll round up and you'll go ahead and serve them 6 crackers to meet the equivalent that you need for that meal service. Another way that you can look is in the food buying guide, which there is a grains chart in the food buying guide. We also do a food buying guide training every other month. The next time we did it in August, it is out in OSDE Connect if you want to do it that way. The next time we'll do it, it'll be in October. You can find the food buying guide. There is an app that you can put on your phone, or you can just Google a food buying guide and it will come up with an interactive form that can also be known as, you could also make into a hard copy and print that out. So when you go to the food buying guide, it's called the food buying guide calculator. That's what the FBG is. So this is new tool. You can go here to this calculator and it will help you with the grains component. What's also great about the food buying guide is if you want more information about the grains component for child nutrition programs, it will give you definitions. It will give you examples of creditable towards the grain, criteria determining acceptable grains, foods that are whole grain, a worksheet for calculating using grams. The schedule or exhibit A, that's the grains chart. So anytime you see exhibit A with grains, it's referring back to the grains chart. And then it also gives instruction for yield data. So there's a lot of good stuff that you can use from the food buying guide. So in the food buying guide, here's a great example, because a lot of times I understand when you're looking at stuff like crackers and things like that, but maybe you want to buy rice and you need, let's see here, you need 1/4 of a cup based on the charts of rice for those that are 5 and under. So what you can do here is if you buy brown rice, long grain, parboiled, if you buy it by the pound, it will serve 31 kids, because 31 will give you 1/4 cups. If you need 1/2 cup, which that's usually for one serving size, it lets you know that per pound, you'll get 15.5 1/2 cup servings, which would be 15.5 servings if you need it for those that are 6 and older. So the food buying guide is another great place, and I can help. There's been some people that after this that they do like me to kind of go by and explain for things like rice and pasta and noodles, how to look at that with also using the grains chart to know how much to prepare, because it does help you to know how much you need to open up or to purchase. So other ways of looking at the methods of looking at ounce equivalent is if you have any CN labels. As you can see here, if it says 2 ounce, and I will tell you the CN labels are all updated. Schools had to go to ounce equivalent in 2012. So since schools have been in the ounce equivalent, all the CN labels have been in ounce equivalent. If it says ounce equivalent, it also means it's whole grain rich. It won't say whole grain on here. This one does say whole wheat, but if it says ounce equivalent on a CN label, then that means that that product that you're serving is a whole grain as well. And you might get product formulation statements for companies. And if you do that as well, it will also tell you how much grain is in that product. So some additional information that we just want you to make sure that you are aware of, and I'm just going to really quickly, before I go into the additional information, I want to show you the other handouts that are in here. So let me go to so we have some handouts that are great tools to use. So this is the one that we were working on a little bit earlier that talks about that you need 20 cheese crackers that are 1 inch by 1 inch to equal 1 ounce equivalent. This is a 6-page document. It gives a lot of really good tools. It shows you how to look at certain items. Again, here is, it kind of goes in alphabetical order. It starts with bagels. And then this is where, so we see bagels, animal crackers, bear-shaped crackers. Then on page 2, it still keeps going with crackers. And this is where we found our savory cracker. And this is where we found our oatmeal. And then it just keeps going with pasta and rice. It gives you, again, great information on here. This is a great tool. I highly suggest using this. And then it also talks about how to use the nutrition facts label in order to use that chart so that you use it effectively. And it will, again, if you need 117 grams, divide that by 3 pancakes. It says 31 grams per pancake. So you know if you serve 1 pancake, you did go over the 1 ounce equivalent. So a lot of great information on here. And then again, it will also give you a guide so you can put your cracker onto it to let you know what it is. So again, if you want to print this out, put your cracker on it to know if it's a 2 by 2, a 1 by 1, or a 1.5 inch around. The next one that we have that is in there is called single serving packages. A lot of people were doing this with COVID, is you were buying individual packaging of items. You weren't necessarily like handing them out from one box. So this is another one of how much you need to serve if you're buying in single serving size. So again, you can use this as well. This is in the packet. We have a couple more that are in the packet that are not in this packet, but they're in the meal patterns section of the resource library. There's one if you do recipes. So if you do recipes and want to know about ounce equivalency, it shows you in there. It's a guide like this. And then also if there's one for feeding infants, if you want to know more about feeding infants and ounce equivalency. But this is just across the board, works for everybody. We don't have a lot of people that do recipes that cook from scratch. And then we don't have a lot that with infants, a lot of times these are going to be the main sheets that you use to figure out if you're using ounce equivalent. And again, the main one you're really going to be is looking at that grains chart to ensure that you are serving enough. So some of that additional information that we have is, again, if a grain item served is lighter in weight than the item on the grains chart, so example with that sliced bread, maybe your sliced bread is 26 grams per slice, and you are serving those that need 1 ounce equivalent or more, then be very cautious about the lighter amount. You need to serve much more than what it says in the grains chart. If you look at a box of something and on the nutrition facts label, it does not list how much it weighs. So let's say it says 5 crackers, but that's all it says. It does not say 5 crackers are 28 grams or 5 crackers equal 40 grams. It needs to list the weight on there. If it just says 5 crackers is a serving size, but no weight, if the item that you're wanting to serve is not in the food buying guide, or you cannot find it on the grains chart, or if it is red on the grains chart, if it's red on the grains chart, it cannot be served in CACFP. If you do not have a CN label or a product formulation statement on items such as chicken nuggets, corn dogs, fish sticks, then we would definitely say, please look for another product that does meet the requirements. Make sure that it meets the requirements weight-wise, that there is a weight on the box. It needs to be in the food buying guide, or it does need to be on the grains chart. Again, you can find all of these resources in the resource library. Again, we have the grains chart in there. This is all under the meal pattern requirements section. We also have the food buying guide. Under the meal pattern requirements, if you're not sure how to get the food buying guide, you can go out there and it will show you where you can go. You can click on the link. It will take you right there as well. And again, I'm going to put these handouts. We'll have the ounce equivalent handouts. I showed you the forms that we had in there, the calculating one, the one with the pieces, and then one for the pre-packaged. I'm going to add the grains chart to that as well, because the grain chart is very important. Even though it is a separate document, if you want these, then you will just open this 1 ounce equivalent packet open, and then you can just print all 3 of them and you'll be good to go. So that is it for ounce equivalent. I hope it does help to show how much that you need. Again, just make sure that you are using the correct grains chart. If you're using one from years past, if it's anything before 2021, it may be an old grains chart. Please dispose of it and make sure that you're using the new one. We haven't sent out the manuals yet. They're at print right now. We will be sending them out within the month. If you have the old manual from 2021, just pull out that grains chart and just keep it in the kitchen, because that is a current one. Just make sure you don't have any that say serving on it. It needs to say ounce equivalent. So that is it for today's training on ounce equivalent. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to stick around if you have those questions. Oh, thank you. If you have any questions, just let me know. I'm going to stick around. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And again, just make sure that you're registered in the training calendar to receive credit, as we do not send out certificates in CACFP, because it will show in the business maintenance page. So you guys have a great week, and welcome to football season. That's all I can say. I'm very excited about football. So have a great time. Let's see here. And I will tell you, when we do, when we pull the Zoom stuff, so thanks for putting that. Anything in the chat is very helpful, because Sherry pulls the chat. But just if there's anything that looks wrong, just send it in, so that way she can make sure it matches what is in the resource library. Or sorry, not resource library, but the training calendar. But you guys have a fabulous day. Thanks for joining us.